Welcome to this next video from Howard Piano Industries. I'm Steve Howard, and we're going to be sharing with you today some different methods of reshaping or filing piano hammers. Okay, and this we're just going to be showing you some of the basics, but there are some different methods that you can use, which we're going to show you a few different ones for filing and reshaping. And sometimes you're going to use all three methods that we're going to be showing you today. Sometimes you might only use one or two depending on what kind of condition your hammers are in and so forth, and several different factors. But again, we're just showing you some of the basics so that you can start to learn the process of learning how to reshape piano hammers. Okay, and this can apply to either grand piano hammers or upright or vertical piano hammers. The same. We're showing you here on an old upright piano action that we've got here that has hammers that are definitely in desperate need of some filing and reshaping. So what you want to do, and what this does is by reshaping or filing the hammers, is it brings the shape of the hammer back into where it should be. Oftentimes you get deep grooves in the hammer that cause you to lose very good tone in the sound of the piano, and because the shape and the condition of the hammers has a lot to do with that. Basically, we're going to I'm going to show you a hammer here that these are new hammers that I'm going to show you here that show you the basic shape of a hammer. This one here is a grand piano hammer. Okay, but you can kind of see it's got this egg shape to it. It's rounded. Of course, this is I think this is a bass hammer, so it's more toward the bottom end. Here's another hammer. Similar shape, so you can see it's supposed to kind of have an egg shape to it. Okay, so it's kind of rounded on the top, but it's not flat across. Okay, and this one's probably a little more pointed than that one is, just a slight amount. Okay, but depending on how you shape it, that also determines the tone. If it's got a little more point to it, like this one does, it's going to have a little bit brighter sound in general, but we won't be getting into all that detail in this video, because again, this is just the basics. So we're going to be bringing the shape of the hammer back to where it should be. If we look at some of these hammers, if we look at the shape, and we're going to kind of have an angle here, but as you can see, it's kind of flattened on the top. Okay, especially when we look at the grooves in the hammers. Okay, when you take into consideration how deep these grooves are, you've got a much flatter or more surface area that hits the strings. Okay, which makes it not as effective in creating a good tone for the hammer. Okay, I'm going to move you over here as we get into doing the work. So basically what we want to do is we want to regain some of the shape. Okay, now I've done this one right here. You can see hopefully in the video that it's a little more rounded. These down here, okay, they've been done. Okay, now the main thing is that you want to make sure that you still have it so the crown, or the top point of the part that's going to hit the string, is still in line with the molding of the hammer here. So so we want to make sure we retain that. If you get it off to the side, one side or the other, like if you take off more on this side or more on the top side, then you're not going to get, that's not something that we want to do. So we want to get it so that we retain the shape and get it back to, obviously you're not going to have as much felt as on a new hammer, but if you can kind of get that same basic shape back, that's going to restore some of the tone. Okay, and resiliency that the hammer has. So we're going to show you a couple different ways. Now, if you've got hammers that have really deep grooves like these do, one method you can use, and you know, if you use this method, you're definitely going to want to employ one of the other methods as well to do the fine sanding or fine shaping of the hammer. Okay, but if you have to remove a lot of felt material, you know, you can use this tool here. Now this is a Dremel, but this attachment at the top here that I've got on this tool is a tool that's made for the Dremel, or an attachment that's made for the Dremel that you can use for filing the hammers. Now you can see that there's some slots here, and they're not all the same size. Okay, so it starts with the smallest one, goes to the medium, and then the large slot. Okay, and what that does is each larger slot removes more felt. So at least from the times I've used it, I've mostly limited it to this this smaller, because it's this is a pretty aggressive method, and you don't want to take off too much felt, which if using this higher end, you can quickly take off too much felt. So I mostly you know, limit it to using this smaller slot here. Okay, so we're going to just show you a little bit, and I'm just going to take one of these hammers here, and again, as you can see, it won't give a real fine shape, but it'll generally, you know, get you down to the point of where you want to be. Okay, so we're going to demonstrate this here. Okay, so you might be able to see that, you know, we got the basic shape back to the hammer, but it's pretty rough looking. So the next method we're going to be showing you is using this hammer sandpaper file, which we sell these, and we do sell the attachments for the Dremel as well. But this hammer sandpaper file, this is probably, you know, I don't know if this is my favorite or the sandpaper strips that we'll be showing you last, but this is a real effective method. Now here we've got a pretty coarse sandpaper. You know, you can use different you know, coarseness of sandpaper depending on how smooth you want it to get. But this again is going to get, and generally if I use this, I'm also going to do some fine sanding with some finer grit sandpaper filing strips, which I'll show you in a minute. But this kind of is a good tool for doing some basic shaping. And what you want to do is you want to start at the bottom and work your way up to the crown. Okay, you know, because otherwise, if you just file across the crown to just remove the grooves, you're still going to have the same problem. You're going to have a flat top, and you're not going to have you know, the right kind of shape that's going to produce the best tone. Okay, now one thing I like to do is I take a little block of wood, and this works either for uprights or grands, but I just cut a small block of wood, and what I'll do is I'll put that underneath the hammer shank, and you can put it under the shank and the head to support that the best. And then what I'll do is file it this way. Okay, so I'll come up the back side. Oh, drop my block. I'll come up the back side as such to get it. In uprights, it's little more difficult to shape the bottom side or the back side of the hammer. So you want to make sure you're watching carefully to get the best shape for your hammer. Okay, so we're going to do that. So there we've got, yeah, it's a little lopsided. And one other thing you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that the top surface of the hammer is flat. Okay, or I'm not flat, but flat across. Okay, because if you've got it lopsided, it's going to strike. It's not going to strike the strings all evenly. So you want it flat across here, side to side. Okay, now that doesn't mean flat this way. Okay, but you want to make sure, and that's where the hammer sandpaper file is nice. It's a flat surface that will file evenly. Okay, and giving the best tone is it's important to have a nice smooth surface. Once you complete it. So this is pretty rough sandpaper, so it doesn't get as smooth as you want. So the other method is these sandpaper strips. Okay, and we have these. These are 1 inch wide, which is a good width, and we've got them in four different grits. Okay, we've got. Let's see, this one is. I've got 60 grit. Okay, as you can see, that one's probably similar to the one on the hammer sandpaper file. We've got a 60, and we've got 100, and then we've got 150 and 120, or I'm sorry, 220. Okay, so we've got four different grits that you can get, and it's usually good to get at least 2 or 3, if not all 4 grits. So you can get it. And these are good for final sanding. Now I've already shaped it with the hammer sandpaper file, so I'm going to go with like maybe the 150. Okay, and you can use these, and by putting your fingers, where you want to apply the pressure. Okay, and then running the sandpaper across that, and that kind of will shape it as well. And you can do the whole thing with these strips. Okay, but I find using this hammer sandpaper file you get a little bit better results. Okay, so going across the crown. Okay, and kind of watching where it is, and I'm going to go to the 220 here because I want to get a real fine, smooth surface here. Okay, and again, you want to put your fingers so that they hold it flat. So again, the surface, so your surface isn't lopsided, so that it hits the strings unevenly. So, and you can double check it when you're done. By once you've got the action in the piano, you can double check it, mating it to the strings to make sure that you've got that nice and even. So that's those are the basics of hammer filing and shaping. And again, there's a lot more detail that goes into doing a more advanced work with this. But if you've got a piano that's maybe it's old and it's really bright sounding, and you want to tone it down a little bit, this is maybe the first step in getting it voiced to the correct, so you have better tone. So you can always do needling, which we'll cover in another video, needle voicing. But this will get the hammer back into the shape the basic shape that it should be to get the best tone. You want to make sure you've got enough felt left. If you take off too much felt, then you don't have enough felt left to have a good tone. But at least if you've got enough felt left, you can shape these and get them to the right basic shape. So feel free to let us know if you have any questions. Our website is howardpianoindustries.com.